Steve Moran here with Senior Living Foresight. You can see I have a very different background today. I am actually on the big island in Hawaii on vacation, but I was so excited about doing this episode of Foresight TV with Phillip Dopson, and we are going to be talking about innovation and technology and labor saving and all sorts of really, really amazing, important things for dining services in senior living. First, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. So I apologize that I've been sort of full of the Hawaii notes I want to give you. The first is that I apologize about the screen. If the screen were up, you could sort of see the ocean, but the sun is just kind of peeking out with the clouds, and it really washes it out more than it already is. The other thing I want to say is that you may see some smoke wafting across the screen. I am not trying out, what is it called, the Kona Gold, or something that used to be there back in the old days. It's a little mosquito-y, and so I have a mosquito coil running just to make it so I'm not going like this while I'm on Foresight TV. So, Phillip, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and let's start digging into new innovations.
Thanks, Steve. Sorry, I'm not in Hawaii, so good afternoon, everyone. I am Phillip Dopson, the Senior Vice President of Consumer Experience, Design and Retail for Compass Community Living.
And what does that mean? So what does that mean? What do you do? What are your job duties?
So my team oversees everything that touches the resident front of the house, from printed marketing, signage, graphics, hospitality, customer service, and obviously then the design and retail side of the business. We do design and build and help drive retail innovation, create retail experiences in senior living. And we do that on large scale, small scale. So everything from small wares, high touch items is what my team focuses on. Compass Community Living, I oversee the Morrison Living business, the Unidyne business, and our CoreWorks business.
Terrific. So dining is this thing that is, it clearly has the most number of touches every day with residents, right? And so it means that it creates the biggest opportunity for wins. It also creates the biggest opportunities for complaints. So that's sort of one piece of the puzzle. And then the other piece of the puzzle, almost sort of three areas that I think we ought to be talking about. The second area is that we've got this huge staffing shortage that impacts every senior living company in the country, every single community in the country, with a couple of exceptions. And then the last thing that I'd like to actually spend a little time on is, how does technology help with dining and all of that stuff? So let's actually maybe start. Well, I'm going to let you pick. Where would you like to start? What's your passion?
Well, it's shifted. I think right now I'm really intrigued by all the back of the house innovation that is coming along. There's some great new technology and innovations out there that are coming to market, that are becoming reality. They're no longer dreams, that I really think will allow us to do retail differently, maybe do day parts in the kitchen differently, and allow us to not necessarily need less staff overall, but be able to solve some of our current challenges with consistency in labor. So using technology to drive production efficiency versus relying on people for all of it, and letting a less skilled labor do the same tasks that once were needed to be done by a true trained culinarian. One of those is the plexer that just has been invented by TurboChef and has come to the market, which is 3 ovens in one that doesn't need to be under a hood. So it's rapid cook, impingement, and convection. So think about something the size of a Coke machine sitting in a retail space where you could cook over 200 items just with a freezer and a fridge with a push of a button. And we've never been able to do that before. Yes, we've had the Turbo Chef, but this is far more advanced than the Turbo Chef. So I really think that's an area to watch, is back of the house innovation. We seem to have been dazzled by all the front of the house technology, tablet ordering, touchless, remote ordering, but I think a new space will be back of the house innovation coming forward.
So I want to come back to this. What do you call the machine again?
The Plexer.
The Plexer. I want to talk. Yeah, I'm sort of thinking that the food service people who are watching are gonna go, oh yeah, that's cool. But for those of us who aren't food service oriented, doing leadership stuff, talk to me a little bit about what that can do in my community.
Well, you think about having 3 different types of ovens that are available. So when I was there at Middleby watching this thing be used several months ago, think about a half pan of biscuits going in and 60 to 90 seconds later being out. Think about a Reuben sandwich that was prepped in the kitchen that now just needs to be tonged onto a sheet pan and put in 60 seconds, comes out with marked bread and is amazing. Even down to egg pans. They have these amazing pans where you crack an egg and there's a space for the yolk. And these things come out 40 seconds later with like crisp edges. It's amazing. So when you think about a retail space in senior living, being able to do biscuits, eggs, waffles, all of that stuff, you would need a culinarian. So now you may have one associate who's got all of this prepped product who can work the coffee machine and also work the Plexer, which is as simple as pressing a button on the screen, letting the drawer close, and out it comes. So really, really amazing. And the fact that it doesn't require a hood and meets all the regulations needed to be able to be used in all levels of living that we serve, it's a pretty fascinating technology.
So I really like this. I had an opportunity. I'm not going to give any more detail than this, but I had an opportunity recently to, not recently, but a couple of years ago, to stay at a senior living community for a couple of days. And when I stayed in that community, I had breakfast. I had meetings the rest of the day, and I was out of the building, but I had breakfast there. And I am sure that the person who was sort of doing the breakfast, staffed by one person, I don't remember what I had, an omelet or hash browns or something. And honestly, it was kind of super unimpressive. And so I really like this idea that I could have, with something like this, it could have really changed that experience into something that wasn't mediocre, but was good. So good. So
well, think about it as,
go ahead,
cook to order. It's basically cook to order, right? So you're not walking up and seeing that soggy bacon in a well pan. We're actually going to cook that bacon for you, or we're going to batch cook it often enough that it's fresh when you get it, right? So I think that's the whole magic of this. Is it's a food waste. It enables you to grow your menu in a small space, and it can be used by someone other than a classic trained culinarian.
And in terms of cost of, would this ultimately reduce my cost of operations, increase it, neutral? Thoughts on that?
I think overall the cost of this machine, obviously I'm not going to say what it is because it varies, but it's affordable. And I think what it would do is allow you to move a day part into a space that you would have never been able to do that before. So think about not serving breakfast in your restaurant and taking your lowest participation in most communities of the day and doing that in your bistro or your retail cafe or another location, which then doesn't require you to bring in all of that back of the house prep that morning, a couple of servers on the floor, and then all those wells full of food, hoping someone comes down. So now we're cooking, we're batch cooking, we're cooking more on demand, we're offering more variety, and you're getting a much better product in the end.
Terrific. So what else are you particularly excited about now?
I think, when think about Compass Group and how far we've come as an organization in technology, we're now able to do the autonomous markets. So think about having a space, it can be as small as a closet, as large as you want it to be. But think about a space that you could get a fresh salad sandwich, a Coke, bag of chips, gum, whatever you want, right? 24 hours a day that a senior could use, because basically this technology is going to pick up on their key fob or something about them that we've given them that knows who they are. And you basically walk in, get what you want, and walk out, just like, all the other technology experiences you see coming along in the grocery industry mainly. It's come to Compass. And so we now have that ability. So I'm really excited to find a place in senior living to try out the first autonomous retail space. And maybe I shouldn't say the first, because we have unattended spaces today, but the resident has to engage with a piece of technology. And oftentimes that's a great experience. Sometimes it's not. It really depends on, the population, where you are in the country. There's so many variables that go into using technology at that age that if I don't have to do anything but go and get what I want and walk out, and it's on my bill, I think that's a win for the future. It also is a win for our staff. So think about those folks that work overnight that now can have a fresh meal in the middle of the night.
Yeah, so this is like the Amazon stores where you walk in and
Right.
you just pick up stuff and
Yep.
you don't have to scan it, and it just like magic, like you've got your personal shopper watching you and making notes, and it goes to your bill or
Frictionless.
Huh?
Yep.
That's
completely
cool.
frictionless.
Yeah. That is cool. I know I was in Florida a few weeks ago, and I'd get into my hotel late at night and try to get some snacks, and it was always just this big hassle. It was sort of a self-serve thing, but you still had to bring it up to the counter, and then they had to ring it up and wait. And that would be cool. That'd be cool. What else?
Absolutely. So I think robots are going to continue to evolve. That makes sense for us. We've had great success with Bear Robotics and their Survey robot for server assistant. So this can serve as a busser, follow behind for a large order, even hosting. The residents are giving these robots names. They get put on the schedule. The great thing is they don't get paid overtime, and they show up every day, right? So, but I think we're going to see that technology expand at a price that we can afford it in the senior space. And what I mean by that is robots that could deliver to-go orders to a room down a long hall, maybe 2 floors up. That technology is out there today, and we have partners that do that. It's not all that affordable right now, and the Survey robot is. So I think that will be something that will continue to emerge, that people will get more comfortable dealing with. I think we're going to find, the tablet ordering and the eating in your villa, your condo, your apartment, whatever it may be, is not going to go away. So we're going to see more and more adaptive technology that is very user-friendly for people to place an order and have it delivered to them or nearby them. And when I say nearby them, there's great locker technology out there now. We've explored lots of different options and have kind of created one of our own, where maybe your order is sent to a kitchen near you on a large campus and then is put in a locker bank near you. But we're reducing that human interaction, the time to get you your food. So I think that is a space to watch. I also think we're going to continue to see the point of sale technology evolve and get more in line with our current senior living resident management system. So, I don't want to just say EMR, because maybe there is no EMR, but there's still a system where that resident information is housed. And how do we interact with those? So it's easy for payroll deduction, easy for billing. And yes, that's come a long way, but it's not as far as it's going to go. So I think you're going to see that really change as well.
So if you were going to, you get a blank sheet of paper, you get a brand new senior living community, you get to come in and you get to set up the whole dining experience in the most optimal way possible. What's that going to look like?
Well, I have a couple passions, and one of them that I think is just makes sense is how do we create that additional venue? Or you hear multiple venues. We need multiple venues, but can you really sustain multiple venues? And if you can, great. If you have the population and that works. But if you don't, but you still have that need to be competitive, flexible convertible spaces. So how does that coffee bar feel like a coffee bar in the morning? How does it feel like, a Panera Bread or a great cafe in the afternoon? And how does it feel like a pub in the evening? And how is that one physical space that's transformed through lighting, technology, innovation to deliver all of that in one footprint? But most importantly, deliver that all with one set of labor, right? So we're not creating multiple spaces, do it all in one. The other is I'm really passionate about bringing the kitchen forward. And I think, we're in senior living, we have such great culinarians and a lot of talent behind that wall. And how do we get the wall down and bring that magic to the front? And we're working on several great projects right now where we're creating what I'm going to say micro venues in one. So, maybe there's a grill station and a salad deli type station. Maybe there's a hearth oven station. And all those stations are out in the front and they're built in and they're great experiences. And all of that staff in the back is now working in these multiple stations. And when your order is fired, it goes to whichever station is appropriate based on what you ordered, and it comes to you. But all that magic is happening out front. All those fresh ingredients and the whole authenticity piece around our culinarians and really proving that it's all fresh and you're seeing those fresh ingredients, I think is where we're headed, versus being handed the menu and the swinging door waiting for someone to come back from the kitchen with your entree.
So one of the questions that I really am puzzled by. So I'm going to go at this a little bit different. So I have a really good friend of mine who does sales in a kind of a pretty basic independent living level community. And one of the things that he's always very careful to do as part of his sales process, and he's really sort of the only person I've ever talked to who really does this, is he's always really careful to set proper expectations about dining. And so he talks about things like, someday you're going to have a meal that you really like, and there are going to be days when there are meals that you don't like because, we are serving 200 people or 150 people every day, 3 meals a day, and that you got to look at it. And he says, it's just like at home, maybe not so much as an adult, but like, think about when you were a kid, right? Your mom some days put out the meal that you really loved and you wish you could have every day that you would really hate if you had every day. And some days she puts out liver and onions or something that you had to eat, but you didn't. And it's never going to be liver and onions that you have to eat. But, there are going to be days when it's not as good as others. And one of the things I wonder about a lot is as we work to improve the dining experience in senior living, if we've set expectations so high that it becomes, we set up ourselves for failure. Do you have any thoughts on how you sort of balance this so you create a good experience? But because most of it is at home, don't have a 4-star experience every day for our meals, particularly for breakfast, but really at any meal. So
it's a great point, Steve. And I think, the 4-star as an example kind of means something different to a lot of people. And so really our philosophy is it really starts with fresh food and getting the ingredients right in the back and creating that great entree or great dish or great salad every time with the fresh ingredients. And giving people choice, don't put them in a position where they have to have the liver and onions, right? So give them some great other options that will satisfy them in that space. When you think about 4-star, when we're selling that as a concept or a coined phrase, in my mind, that's the hospitality, the customer service experience that is an expectation. So it's good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Moran. What would you like for breakfast today? Using your name, engaging, serving properly, clearing properly. That whole hospitality approach has got to be there no matter what level community you are. And I think between hospitality and the right ingredients in the back, you can have a really great program.
So let's. Maybe we're drifting too far. So you tell me if we are. But I really I'd like to explore a little deeper the experiential part and the people part. I know there's not a lot of Mexican food in Hawaii. I got to tell you, we discovered that. So we found this one Mexican place, and it was kind of divey, to tell you the truth. But one of the servers there, we got into this great conversation with, and it took this divey experience to a really nice experience because we had this people interaction. How do you go about creating that people experience for residents?
Well, I think in our business, typically the team of people that's serving our residents oftentimes are high school kids after school. They're obviously part-time workers, most of them working, a short 4-hour shift. And so it isn't a career server because we don't tip in our industry. So your ability to attract that level of person just isn't there. And I think that's a whole nother podcast for another day that we'll see
Yeah.
change. But for now, it's consistent training topics every day. It's getting in front of that staff every day with one or two core elements of hospitality and service, really all focused around positive, meaningful engagement, and not just going out and asking someone for their order form that they circled with a pencil. That's not hospitality. That's not what people should be getting at this point in their life. And so, you may not be 4-star to some, but you can create a great, engaging, meaningful experience, just like you had in Hawaii, right? So not a great place physically. You were probably worried about what the food was going to be like, but by the time your order was taken, you were hooked. We can do that in senior living too, right? And so when that plate is set down in front of the resident and you see that face, you ask what's wrong. You offer to fix it, right? It's lending that hand and being intentional with your interactions. And I think we can teach people to do that, even if they're part-time in a 4-hour shift. But it's not a one and done. It's a repetitive, everyday effort to continue to drive that hospitality philosophy forward in the business. And then most importantly, being out there and observing it, and experiencing it yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's part of maybe the biggest ultimately the biggest challenge. I spend a lot of time looking at work culture and how do you make great experiences for team members, right? And there's been over the last 6 or 8 years a big emphasis on creating great break rooms for team members. And I'm going to start by saying I fully support that effort. The problem is that when you walk into an amazing, great break room, the first time you look at that and go, man, this is really, really cool. But after you've been working there for a year or 2 or 3 years, that's just the break room. And so I think, I don't know. In fact, you might have some feedback on this, but I suspect that there are often times when people first move into senior living and they go, man, this food is great. It's so much better than I ever got at home. And then they probably don't, the complaining probably doesn't start for 6 or 8 months after it's become routine. Maybe that's not true. I don't know. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think creating the employee environment that lends itself to retain people is another piece of this to solve this hospitality experience piece, right? So what do I mean by that? I mean, if I'm a high school kid or a college kid or whatever, maybe I'm, in my 50s and just want to work part-time. What amenities are there for me? And so you talk about the break room, but when I describe these frictionless markets and places like that are intriguing to young people as well, that maybe you could grab a salad or a sandwich on the way home or provide something for them. Culture is so important. And I think that's one thing that Compass Community Living does well, is really driving home the cultures of our brands. They're unique, but they have similarities. And at the end of the day, it's, treating each other as we're going to treat our residents and really fostering an environment that's surrounded by hospitality. And it's not just an act out front. So I grew up in the hotel business, and so the back of the house was the front of the house. That's the way I was taught. So people love these restaurants and hotels, but when you go in the back, it's really cool too, right? And in the magical destination hotels, it's an experience from getting out of your car to leaving. And I think back to my days at Opryland way early on, and you were excited to be there. It felt special to work there, and so that conveyed through your whole day. And we have to do that in order to get people to not just see it as a job, but more than being the best part of someone's day, being a special piece of someone's day, and really enhancing that great food.
Yeah, I think that it's such a great opportunity. I've spent a little bit of time um, at some Ritz Carltons and been able to tour a couple of kitchens and talk to them about how they motivate their team members. And it's really remarkable. But what I love about it is that it's always based around the stories. Tell me a story
Yeah.
about how you delighted a resident, right? And I just, it's one of the areas in senior living that I struggle with so much, because I think that if there were story time every day with every stand-up meeting about how you impacted a resident's life or a family's member's life, or even perhaps the life of a team member, it would be a transformational thing in terms of the employee experience. So.
I agree. And you see in our business, unfortunately, we have the end of life as well. And so when that happens, you see these team members that were so connected to these individuals, and you watch them they're lost because that person meant so much to them. And I love the idea of celebrating all of those positive connections in the format daily, and not just focus on the 3 negative complaints we got the day before.
Yeah, and it's so easy to focus on. It's so easy to focus on the negative stuff, and can be all consuming. And what we need to be looking at really is those great moments. And perhaps what happens is that we this the idea that we need to see the big and the small, that sometimes those big meaningful moments are just tiny little touches that happen. There are they can be a 1 minute or a 30-second conversation that can be really transformational. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So what else should we got about 2 more minutes here. What else should we be touching bases about?
I think watch the back of the house innovation. Labor is going to continue to be an issue. And so how do we make it easier for the staff that we currently have? And I think that's a focus. So we're focused on filling opening positions, which, yes, is important. But how do we make the job of those that are coming today? How do we make their experience as good as it can be, the best it can be? Because if we lose them, we're only going in the wrong direction, right? So I think we're often just focused on all of the open roles we have, and we need to equally focus on taking care of the people we have today and making sure that what we're asking of them, we're giving them. And that's a great experience and a great place to work.
So employees eat for free, or do you charge them?
It varies. It depends on the client situation. I would say it's probably 50-50 out there.
And if you were to make a recommendation, do you find that one works better, and maybe sort of walk through what the arguments are for both?
I think if there's parameters around it and it's consistent, I'm always an advocate for giving someone a meal during their shift. A free for all off the menu and some of that stuff that's out there, can get really cost prohibitive, right? So I think,
right.
Decide what it's going to be. Make it as good of a meal as you're going to serve your residents, and be consistent. So if it's salad and cold cuts, then it's that every day, not occasionally, right? And I think where we then go south is when we're inconsistent in those benefits, and people really rely on it more than you think. And we're seeing a lot of communities give $5, $8 on a spin down card they can use at a fresh food vending machine or maybe in a cafe, or, as long as it's consistent and they're able to get something they value, I'm an advocate for taking care of our associates.
Cool. So, Phillip, thank you very much. Great conversation.
Thank you.
I love your passion. I love Morrison's and Compass's passion for the senior living space and making it better. If we want to find out more information, what's the best way for people to find you, to find Morrison and Compass?
MorrisonLiving.com, CompassCommunityLiving.com if you want to look at all of our offerings out there, or you can email me directly. But this was great, and next time I want to be in Hawaii.
Yes,
but thank you.
Yeah, we should like bring everybody here for Hawaii and do like a week of Foresight TV, and we'll get the lighting right. We can look out at the beach and make everybody who's watching jealous, and or maybe we could do a live show and have everybody come over here for a big thing, right? Wouldn't that be fun?
I love it. Let's do it.
Cool. Thanks very much. Thank
Thanks,
you very much for watching.
Appreciate it.
I will be back in California for next week's Foresight TV. Not nearly as exciting, but the lighting will be better, I do promise. Thank you very much. Have a great week.